Hey there YouTube, this is Todd coming from Greenville, South Carolina area, and today I'm working on a 2016 Jeep Grand Cherokee. This vehicle has got the Eco Diesel engine in it and about 96,000 miles on it. We are replacing the turbo water pipe on this because we found a coolant leak in it coming from the back side of the motor. Notice a puff of steam coming off the back part of this motor, which seemed to indicate might be coming from that turbo water pipe connection. Not 100% certain that's where it's coming from, but when we dug into this thing, we did find that rubber section of the turbo water pipe was dry rotted. In fact, here it is. When we took it out, just taking it out, it ripped right in two. So it definitely is a weak link. If it wasn't a problem this time, it certainly was going to be a problem in the future. So we looked to try to replace that. I want to talk to you how we did it and the approach to do this job. It is a difficult job, but it is doable. It just takes a lot of work to get it done, and I'll kind of go through that with you. First time through it, it will take you a while to do it. As you get into it a little bit more, you can do this a little bit quicker. You're looking at probably a minimum of 3 hours to tear it, to get the intake out, but that could easily take you 5-6 hours the first time through. I find that there's about 24 or so electrical connections that have to come free. You got 5 fuel lines that have to come free. And a number of hoses that got to come free. So, you know, all that takes a lot of time to pull it back. But I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of how I did it and then how we did the repair. So, the first thing is you got to remove all these tubes. So the tubes are running front to back of the motor, all in the front here. So, you know, we have to disconnect the ones that are affecting us and pull them to the side. So you see tubes tied back in multiple places down here, pushed back. So we had to do that. These the inlet tube here has, this would be your air inlet into your intake, and there's these fittings that come on here, and so you've got to get a screwdriver under this wire to pull these back, top and bottom. And for me, I ended up using 4 screwdrivers, top and bottom, to release these. And once you get them fully released, they will pull back, but you've got to pull them back that way. As I mentioned, all the electrical connections, you've got electrical connections here and down here, all of your injectors. You've got your glow plug connectors. Those you just grab with a pair of pliers, you give a little pop up and they'll come free. There's connectors in the back. You got to do the glow plugs on the other side as well, and a few connections that will go in the back here. They all got to come back so you can take that wiring harness and peel it back over from the driver's side towards the passenger side. So that's the way you kind of open that up. So you got to take everything off, pull the insulation, whatnot out of the way so you can get all those electrical connections out. You definitely have to take out the 3 fuel lines on this side. There's a fuel line that goes from this fitting. I believe that goes to the back side of this fuel rail, which has been removed. And there's a fuel line that comes off the fuel pump down the bottom there, and it comes up and wraps and goes into this fuel rail. So those 5 lines have to come out in order to do the project, because they go right over the top of the intake, and so they're going to affect you. When I first did this job, I took apart took out that turbo water pipe, which is a banjo bolt connection right down there, and then there's another one back behind that pipe. I had to peel back that heat shield in order to get in there with a 3/4 or 19 millimeter, and I had to shave down that bolt or that ratchet in order to fit in behind there. That was a job, and I had to loosen this top bolt on that outer pipe in order to get enough room to get in there. I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's not the way. If you want to replace the part, that's what you have to do, but really the only thing that goes wrong is the rubber hose. So there's nothing wrong with the pipe on either end, it's just the rubber hose. So I'm going with a high temperature 3/8 high temperature silicone hose. And what I did for my install is I stole the clamps off the reservoir bottle here, and I used 2 of these. These are heavy-duty spring-loaded clamps, and I thought they'd be really good for this application than a clamp with a nut on it and a worm drive on it. So these clamps are spring-loaded, heavy-duty, and if you noticed, I turned the tabs of those clamps down, and that's so that I can have the clearance in here in order to drop the intake down. So it makes a real clean installation. I got the high temperature pipe in there, which should last a longer time and not dry rot like the old one did. And then I got this heavy duty spring loaded clamps that will hold that nice and tight. And this is the intake manifold upside down. And this is the piece, this module here that drops down in between here. And so you have to maintain the clearance so that can drop in there nice and clean. So what you would do is you file off or cut off those existing clamps on the other one and just work the old hose out. You'll have to loosen the bottom banjo bolt so you can roll this part of the pipe back. Loosen it, don't take it all the way out, because there are copper gaskets in there, and if you lose them, then you got to replace those copper gaskets, which you might want to do anyway. But you certainly don't want to lose them. Once you do that, then this hose will slide, in one end, and you put your clamp on there, and then you work this other side in and put that clamp on, and like I said, roll those tabs down so they don't interfere with the install of the intake manifold. So that's a nice way to approach it. It will save you about $200 buying a new part, and I think it's a pretty solid installation. I don't see any reason why this won't last a good long time, and that hose should definitely do better than this original one. If you buy the new part, this will happen in another 80 to 100,000 miles. You'll have the same problem with this hose. So anyway, that's the way I approached it. Again, peeling back all the electrical, taking off all those wires. There are some very difficult bolts to get at. I will tell you a couple other tricks here. This rear electrical module right here, you can see me wiggling it. There are 3 bolts on this plate. You see a bolt right here. There are 3 others. This one does not have to come out, but the 3 others do. And that will give you enough room to loosen that to get to these back manifold bolts here, as well as the bolts that hold this pipe, the elbow that sits on top of here. So you'll need to loosen that in order to get these parts out of there. But that's one of the tricks. You do not need to take this tube out. You can if you want, but the loosening bolt for that is way in the back, very difficult to get. I can't even show it to you because it's very hard to get to. You got to feel that one out in order to get it. And there's also an electrical connection way in the back there that this wire is going to. You do not need to take that one free. There's enough play in the wires to flip this over and not have to get that back one out. So that's the way I did it. And you can see I've got those wires far enough out. You'll have to really, work the manifold out a little bit, but it will come out. You do have to take out the fuel rail on this side. Here's the little tool I made. So you've got your Torx bit sitting in there, and then I just got a 1/4" drive that hooks on there. I put a little tape on there so it don't fall loose, and then you can just work it in. It's best to take that fuel rail out after you've loosened the manifold, so it gives you a little bit of play in the manifold. You get into those nuts there for the fuel rail with the little handy tool that I made here. So it worked out pretty well doing that. So they're not really difficult to break free. They're just hard to get at. So anyway, I hope that helps you out. I'm hoping it solves my problem completely, but the time will tell when we get it all back together. So good luck, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.